These are going to get people talking, and if you want to be known as the cologne guy in a good way, then these fragrances are going to be perfect for you. And I say that because there are, generally speaking, two types of cologne guys out there. The first is the good type, which is what we're striving for today, where you're kind of known as that guy that just always smells good, you know, in your workplace or school or your group of people that you're always around or whatever. You're just kind of expected to smell good, and so that's kind of a good thing. That's pretty cool. But there's also that cologne guy mint with a negative connotation, and generally that's from someone who is spraying way too much in the wrong situations, and generally they kind of reek of cologne to the point where it's off-putting and kind of annoying. And you don't really want to be like that. Now, there's a time and a place for it, sure. When you're in an environment where there's a lot of people and a lot of things going on, you might want to apply heavier. And in that situation, you really can't become the cologne guy because there are so many other people around, likely wearing a scent of some sort, so many other smells in general if you're at a bar or a party or whatever. So there's a lot more competition, don't have much to worry about. But in a school, work setting, or anything like that, got to be a bit more careful. And the reason why I'm going with this selection today is because they're very mass-pleasing, of course, but also just unique enough to stand out enough to the point where people will want to talk about it and comment on it. And if you wear these enough, they kind of become, you know, your signature scents, and people are just always going to expect that you smell amazing, and it makes everything a whole lot easier. Even when you wear some more basic scents some days, people are still going to say you smell great because they're used to you smelling above and beyond all the time if you are wearing these a lot. This is a pretty good selection in my opinion. I want to go ahead and get into this here, start talking about it with Parfums de Marly Sedley. Now this one's going to be a little bit more expensive. Don't worry, they're not all pricey. Might as well rip the band-aid off, get this one out of the way. Generally around $180 if you're, you know, lucky on a good day. Anything more than $200, I would wait. I don't want to go above that, or I wouldn't, you know, tell you to go above that price. But generally, you can get these for just under $200 on discounters when everything is going smoothly. And at that point, it's a lot better of a pickup than if you were paying retail or up into the 200s for it. This one is a fantastic summertime scent, but it does work all year round. It's a fresh one primarily here. A lot of citrus, musk, ambroxan, that sort of thing, with a green minty undertone as well. It smells great in the high heat. Smells great just any time of the year. And also there are some affordable options out there. Something like Lattafa Mahir Legacy is a great scent to go for if you are on a bit more of a budget. That's around $35 to $40. But I do like Sedley. This DNA is great. It's one of my favorite fresh offerings from Parfums de Marly. And it's the type of scent that is familiar, yes, but also does its own thing just enough to where it is something that stands out. Besides clones, there aren't anything else that smell very similar to this one. Again, it's going to kind of have a familiar type of, you know, personality overall, given that it is a fresher scent focusing on ambroxan and notes that have been used a million times, but with its own twist. Coming back down in price here to around, I don't know, what's this one going for? $90, maybe $100. It's still a bit new. It's 1 Million Elixir by Paco Rabanne. I don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this. Either you like it or you don't. Most people are probably going to like how it smells. The people who won't like this are the ones that just don't like 1 Million because there are tons of flankers and they are starting to get maybe a bit repetitive. Maybe, maybe not, depending on how you feel. But this type of line, same with the Invictus line, same with Paco Rabanne in general, a lot of negativity usually follows these around. And every time a new one is announced, pretty much immediately gets downvoted and hated on already before anyone has had a chance to smell it. So, like it or not, this is something that's going to work very well. Tonka, vanilla, apple, it's sweet. It is, you know, on the basic side of things for sure. However, it's something that people are going to love the smell of, and it has great performance, which is going to help get it out there. Now, it also isn't overly, you know, aggressive either in terms of its projection. It's not something that's going to get you in a ton of trouble and get you labeled as that cologne guy in a bad way, so long as you know, monitor your sprays a little bit here and don't go too crazy when it's, you know, a time that you shouldn't be. But this one does also have the power behind it to where when you want to hit yourself with a few extra sprays and go out, it's still going to cut through the air. This next one here is fantastic. It's one of the best releases within this line. It is Le Male Les Parfums by Jean-Paul Gaultier. So this one has a bit of iris in here, tonka bean, vanilla, some pepper, lavender, if I didn't say that already. So kind of going back to the original with that lavender, vanilla. Then the iris comes in to give it a little bit of a kind of a sweet creaminess to some extent. Some spices going on in here. This one is very well done, and it still has some of that younger, youthful smell to it. However, not as much as something like Ultra Male, which can be a little bit more, you know, finicky in terms of people liking it or not, because it is so overwhelmingly sweet. This one I find to be a lot more likable across the board because it does have a bit of a fresh, kind of dusty, powdery balance coming from that tonka bean in here as well. You could also go for something like the new Le Male Elixir. That's a great option as well. That would fit in this video, but I've been talking about that a lot recently, and I kind of wanted to feature something else. This is another option. You know, Ultra Male is one of my favorites, but it's not going to be for everybody, and so you kind of have to do your diligence there and do some sampling around, see what's going to work best for you. Also, good performance out of this one as well. One that you can get for a pretty decent price on discounters. It's almost always going to be under $100 for the 125 ml bottle. Testers you can get and don't have to worry about a cap because none of these have caps. Save a bit of money there. Also, oftentimes this one, the testers can really come in at a steep discount. I've seen these as low as like $70 to $75 for testers, 125 ml. So if you're on the lookout for that, you know, maybe hold out. I've got a mailing list, texting list you can sign up to at the link and number down below. Anytime a great deal like that pops up or anything rare, discontinued, hard to find comes into stock, I do notify about it. So if you want to be the first to know, you can sign up down below. Next up, we have Givenchy Gentleman's Society. So this one's growing on me a little bit. I've heard there's a new flanker coming out. I can't remember if it's a Parfum or an Elixir or something, but I know there's a new one coming. And so I am actually a bit excited for that because, in my opinion, it can only get better from here. And I'm not saying this is bad. If it was that bad, I wouldn't be talking about it. But it wasn't all that exciting to me when I first got it in and tried it. And to be fair, it's still not overly exciting. But also, it doesn't have to be. For the topic of this video, we're not going for, you know, the most unique scents to have ever been created. I just felt that it lacked a little bit, and there's a little bit to be desired. However, again, they've got a new one coming out, which I think will start to correct that in a positive direction. So this one here has cardamom, vanilla, and Palo Santo as some of the notes here. So kind of a creamy woodiness, and then some vanillic, kind of warm, spicy sweetness going on as well. I think this one will do very well if they amp it up, make it a bit heavier, richer, and stronger. They do have a solid baseline here. And just because, you know, it's not something that I'm overly pleased about, I can look at it at face value and say, you know what, this is the type of thing that for the average consumer is going to be amazing. It does have good performance. It does have that mass-pleasing, sweet, new style smell to it. And you really just can't mess something up like this. I mean, you wear this for pretty much any situation. For the most part, you're going to be set. Summertime might be a bit of a stretch unless you're indoors where it's, you know, just a cool temperature generally, air conditioning and stuff. But here in wintertime, this stuff is great. Next up, Valentino Uomo Born in Roma Intense. So this is an eau de parfum Intense. And this is one where, surprisingly, I ended up really liking it a lot. You know, the original Born in Roma is fine, not the greatest. Again, for this type of video, it would work. However, just from a uniqueness standpoint and an interesting standpoint, it you know, wasn't all that exciting. However, this one is a big improvement, and in my opinion, it makes the original Born in Roma obsolete. In my opinion, just go for this one and forget about the EDT. This one has a surprising amount of freshness when you first spray it. So I just did that spray there. A lot of lavender off the top, a ton of it. Now, as you start to work into the dry down, you start picking up on some sweet vanilla, and then even further on in the dry down, a little bit of vetiver as well. A soapier, cleaner, fresher vetiver. But again, that opening is very, very lavender forward, very aromatic. It doesn't get into the sweetness until a little bit later on, once it starts to settle down. It might even be deceiving for some people. When you spray it for the first time, you're like, wow, a freshie. I wasn't expecting that. But give it some time. It does start to sweeten up, and in my opinion, that's when it starts to get even better. So like I said, yeah, go for this one, the EDP Intense. It is a newer release. I think this was last year's release. And so be on the lookout for discounters when you can get it for below retail. I think it would be worth picking up, checking out. Again, if you just want to smell good with a little bit of a twist, go for something like this. Now this next one here is easy to hate on for sure. And I'm not going to sit here and hate on it. Maybe surprising because I have been a little bit critical on some of these. However, this is one that I really do like a lot, and it is YSL MYSLF, starting off as an EDP. So this is something cool that a few brands have been doing here recently, is they'll start off a new line right away with an EDP instead of an EDT and going through that typical progression. I think it's because the flankers are getting so deep now, they don't need to start off with an EDT to get their money's worth anymore. They could start off with an EDP and then release a Parfum, an Elixir, and an Eau de Parfum Intense or something like that and still really keep it going. Like for example, Ralph's Club, that line, they started that off with an EDP and now they have a Parfum and an Elixir, and I'm sure there's many more to come. The Brioni line of scents start off as an EDP and continue that, and so it's cool to see that they're kind of, at least a little bit, seeming to get away from EDTs, which I'm okay with. So what does this one have going on? You know, not a whole lot. However, it is super bright, very uplifting, and very refreshing. Like this is one that's going to cool you off and smell amazing in the high heat. I can't wait to try this one out in the summertime. It's got bergamot, orange blossom, and Ambro Fix, which I believe is some sort of new ambroxan variety. It is crispy, orangey, bright, fresh, citric, clean and aromatic. You know, again, on paper and even when you're smelling it, it's not something that's going to blow you away in the sense of being new and exciting and unique. However, they did something right with this one. Just the type of ingredients that they've used, the impact that this one delivers when you spray it and when you smell it on skin is powerful. Like it has a punchy delivery to it. It's very zesty and effervescent, kind of sparkling. You know, again, just going back to it here, the scent DNA itself is not overly unique. However, the delivery of this stuff and just the wearing experience I find is above average. I guess that's what it's all about sometimes. It doesn't have to be super unique to be exciting. It can be exciting in the sense of just having a bright, powerful delivery like this. Really something that's going to wake you up and smell amazing. You know, if you're a little bit tired in the morning, spray this stuff on, it's going to wake you up. Next up, we have Bleu de Chanel Parfum. So this is my favorite Bleu de Chanel. And if you were to only get one, in my opinion, go for the Parfum and call it. Realistically, you probably don't need to own all three, at least for the average wearer. You know, if you're not building up a giant collection of scents where you feel like you need to own everything, like I feel, you know, I like to have completed lines. That's just how I am. It's very taxing on the wallet, of course, and I'm sure some of you guys are the same way, but if you're really trying to keep it under control and you only want one Bleu de Chanel, get the Parfum. It's a little bit more expensive, so up front, out of pocket, it's a bit more, but I think it pays dividends over time compared to something like the EDT or EDP. The EDT is a bit obsolete, so you're kind of between the EDP and the Parfum. I would go the Parfum. You're going to get better performance, richer scent, just better overall. So this one has lemon zest, sandalwood, amberwood. I believe there's a little bit of cedar wood in there as well. So not exactly the same as the EDP, but still Bleu de Chanel DNA. It just doesn't have like the incense grapefruit smokiness. Instead, it has a zesty lemon off the top, and then some creamier woods and all that sort of thing. Smells phenomenal. Very classy, very expensive smelling. That's my main takeaway that I've always kind of felt when I wear Bleu de Chanel, is that it just smells premium, and every time I wear it, I feel fancy. And that's coming from someone who owns a ton of overpriced niche scents as well. And so the fact that I can wear a designer, granted it's Chanel, it's premium, and feel that way, I think that's saying something. Speaking of niche, however, not overpriced niche, we have Mancera Intense Cedrat Boise. So nothing overpriced about Manceras, they just aren't. They retail for $180. I think this retails for $200. Don't touch the retail prices, guys. You can get pretty much every Mancera for $100 or less. The Intense Cedrat Boise is right on the line. 100, maybe 102, maybe a little bit more depending on like Fragrance By generally has the best price, $102. If it's out of stock, some other places might have it for like $120. So depending on if you want to wait around to save that extra 20 or not, it's going to be up to you. But just within that range, 120 or less is where you should be. But again, realistically, it's popped up for right around 100. And other Manceras, like the original Cedrat Boise, Red Tobacco, Oud Lemon Mint, and so on, are generally under 100 into the $90, $80, $70 range. Kind of like what I was saying with Bleu de Chanel Parfum. If you're only to own one, get that. If you were to only own one Mancera, and that's tough because Mancera has a ton of hits, I would say it's Intense Cedrat Boise, really. At least as of what they have out there right now, it would probably be this or like the new Mancera Cosmic Pepper. If you were to only own one Cedrat Boise, no surprise, get the Intense. The EDP is not needed anymore. It's fruity, it's woody, a bit sweet, but with a nice fresh kick as well. Citrusy, also kind of a lemony, fruity, citrusy kind of nature going on here. So sweet and fresh combination. This stuff is versatile. It's a powerhouse beast mode of a scent. People are going to go crazy over this stuff. Speaking of Ralph's Club earlier, Ralph's Club Parfum. So again, they started off with an EDP, Parfum, and they have the new Elixir. The new Elixir is great, a little bit more expensive. Can't really get it on discounters yet, but you can get the Parfum on discounters. And again, obviously not as expensive. This one has lavender, clary sage, apple, and vetiver. Are you noticing a trend? A lot of these are aromatic focused. Sage, lavender, and then vetiver often is kind of tied in there as well. That's one of the new trends. It's been all over the place. If it's not vanilla and tonka or something, or some sort of chestnut kind of sweet gourmand accord like Strong With You or PDM Leighton, then chances are it's going to be aromatic and clean and kind of soapy fresh like this. This kind of gets compared somewhat to, a Y EDP, things like that, and a little bit of a similarity there, but this one doesn't have the level of apple fruitiness that Y Eau de Parfum has, for example. This one focuses a lot more on the aromatics. So, depending on what you're into, might be good, might be bad, just depends. One thing's for sure, this is going to smell great to everybody, people who aren't overly critical. I'm not talking everybody in the community, but everybody around you out in the world, workforce, school, whatever. People are going to walk by this and think it smells great. End of story. Makes it super easy. Last up, one that has grown on me significantly over the past few years. It's been out for a while, but it's just, I don't know, every time I smell it, I just love it even more. It's Eros Flame by Versace. So think of it as essentially a more citrus-forward version of Eros. So it has orange, lemon, vanilla, pepper, and tonka. Doesn't have the same type of mintiness, doesn't have the same type of overly rich sweetness that the EDP Parfum has. The orange-lemon combo gives a nice, creamy, fruity, citrusy backbone that is prominent, and it really does the DNA well. And that vanilla black pepper combo there underneath that orange and lemon off the top is beautiful. The opening on this is fantastic. You wouldn't think I would be getting this excited over an Eros scent. However, again, I gotta say, this is really good. It's quite addicting. And so, these days, the original Eros has been used often by a lot of people. Flame is a nice little, way to change it up and still get that similar DNA, just modernized. Alrighty, guys, I think that's going to do it for me. A list of scents that really help to make you stand out without pushing it too far. So if you want to be known as that cologne guy in a good way and have everybody talking about you, like when you walk into work, everybody's like, oh, here he is. I wonder what he smells like today. Or, oh yeah, this guy, he always smells good, that type of thing. These are the scents that's going to help you stand out just enough to do that, but not stand out too much to where then you smell weird. So there's a fine line. Most of these also share great performance, which helps that along as well, so people are actually able to smell you. Adjust your sprays accordingly depending on your skin chemistry and what scents we're talking about. Eros, for example, you'll have to spray less than something like YSL Myself. I've got them all linked down below. Again, if you're on the hunt for anything rare, discontinued, or hard to find, or just great deals, sign up to my mailing list and texting list at the link and number down below as well. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.